$15. That's it. $15 in about 6 minutes of your time, and your bedroom stops feeling like the inside of a truck cab parked in a Texas lot in July. Before you roll your eyes, I'm not selling you a gadget. I'm not selling you anything. I'm a mechanic. I fix things for a living, and about 11 summers ago, a customer asked me why his shop fan moved a ton of air but never actually cooled the place down. That one question sent me down a rabbit hole. And what I found out is something the air conditioning industry has zero interest in you knowing. Most of the heat you feel in a hot room isn't room temperature at all. It's humidity sitting on your skin with nowhere to go. And there's a $15 fix for that, sitting in most hardware stores and probably your own garage right now. That gets ignored because it doesn't come with a brand name and a $1,000 install fee attached to it. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to buy, exactly how to set it up, and exactly why nobody in the appliance business is in a hurry to tell you about it. Let's talk about who benefits from you being uncomfortable in your own house every summer. Central air conditioning in the US is a massive industry, and window unit sales spike every single June like clockwork, right alongside portable AC units, smart cooling fans, and every gadget in between. That's not some wild accusation. That's just how the market works. Hot people buy cooling equipment, and the hotter it gets, the more of it they buy. But here's the part that doesn't get said out loud in the showroom, and it definitely doesn't get printed on the box of a $200 portable AC unit. A huge percentage of I need AC situations aren't actually about raw temperature at all. They're about airflow and moisture. Two things a $15 setup can fix without a single extra amp of electricity beyond what your fan already pulls. The villain here isn't some executive twirling a mustache in a boardroom. It's simpler and dumber than that. It's an entire industry built around the assumption that hot room only has one real solution. The expensive one, the one that gets installed, financed, and serviced. Box fan manufacturers have been slapping the same flat blade angle on units since the 90s because it's the cheapest tooling to mass produce, not because it's the most effective shape for actually moving air through a room. Nobody's required to tell you that a wet towel and a stream of moving air can drop the felt temperature in a dry room by 10 to 15 degrees. That's not on the box. That's not in the manual. You had to be a mechanic, or your grandfather who grew up without central air, to already know it. Think about how many houses in this country, especially older ones, were built and lived in for decades before central air was standard. Those people weren't miserable every summer. They understood airflow the way we understand nothing anymore, because they had to. Look at old farmhouse design. Tall windows on opposite walls, transoms above doors, wraparound porches that shaded the walls from direct sun, attic vents positioned to pull hot air straight up and out. None of that was decoration. Every piece of it was a deliberate cooling strategy, built into the structure itself, long before anybody plugged in a compressor. Somewhere between then and now, that knowledge got quietly phased out in favor of just buy the unit. And an entire generation grew up assuming a hot room only has one answer. I see the same pattern in the shop constantly. A truck comes in overheating, and the easy sell is replace the radiator. Sometimes that's genuinely the right call, but half the time it's a clogged passage, a sticking thermostat, or airflow blocked by years of road grime packed into the fins. A cheap fix that never gets mentioned first because it doesn't ring up much on the invoice. Cooling a room works the same way. The expensive fix isn't always wrong, but it's almost always offered first, whether or not it's actually necessary. Here's what guys who grew up wrenching in unair-conditioned shop bays have known forever. Air movement plus evaporation beats a stagnant cold room almost every time, and it costs pennies to set up. Your body cools itself by sweating. Sweat evaporates off your skin and pulls heat away with it. That's basic thermodynamics. The exact same principle your engine's radiator runs on, the exact same principle an old-fashioned swamp cooler runs on, the same principle that's been cooling human beings since long before anybody plugged in a compressor. The problem in a stuffy bedroom usually isn't that the air itself is too warm. It's that the air right around your body is already saturated with moisture and heat, and it isn't moving, so your sweat has nowhere to go and simply stops evaporating. You feel sticky, heavy, and miserable even when the thermostat claims it's only 78 degrees. A regular box fan sitting in the corner just pushes that same stale, humid air around in circles. It feels like something's happening, but it isn't actually solving the underlying problem. It's just redistributing warm, damp air instead of replacing it with anything better. That's exactly why people run a fan all night long and still wake up damp, groggy, and irritated, wondering why the fan didn't work, what actually works, and what old school mechanics, farmers, and anybody who ran a shop before central air was common have used for decades, is forcing genuine cross-ventilation combined with a moisture source the moving air can evaporate off of. Two specific, well-documented pieces of physics make this work, and neither one requires you to buy anything you don't already have. First, the cross-draft principle. A room needs a real entry point for air and a real exit point at a different height for that air to actually cycle through the space, instead of just churning in place near one fan. A single fan blowing air in low on one side of a room does almost nothing meaningful on its own. It just stirs the same air. But a fan pulling hot air out through a high window on the opposite side of the room, paired with a cooler air source coming in low, creates a genuine pressure differential that flushes the entire room in minutes instead of hours. This is the same basic principle attic fans and old farmhouse throughput ventilation designs used before anybody had central air at all. Second, evaporative assist, passing moving air across a wet surface, a soaked towel, a shallow pan of ice water, a couple of frozen water bottles, drops the temperature of that air stream by several real degrees before it ever reaches your skin. That's the exact same mechanism a swamp cooler uses, minus the $400 price tag, the water lines, and the maintenance contract. There's an important catch, though, and I'm not going to hide it from you like a salesman would. This only works well in lower humidity climates. If you're already living somewhere swampy and thick with moisture, this trick has a lot less room to work in, because the air is already close to saturated. I'll show you exactly how to check that in a second, so you know what to actually expect before you set anything up. None of this is secret science. It's sitting in basic HVAC textbooks. It's sitting in Physics 101. It's the same principle behind why you feel cold stepping out of a swimming pool, even on a hot day, or why a wet t-shirt cools you off faster in a breeze. It's just never marketed to you, because grab a fan you already own and a bag of ice from the gas station doesn't move product off a showroom floor, and it definitely doesn't get you into a financing plan. There's also a mechanical reason cheap box fans underperform that almost nobody talks about, and it's worth knowing before you set anything up. Most mass-produced box fans use a shallow blade pitch, meaning the angle of the blade relative to the direction of spin is fairly flat. A flatter pitch is cheaper to injection mold and it's quieter at low speed, but it moves noticeably less air per rotation than a steeper pitched blade. That's exactly why a box fan and, say, an old-school pedestal fan with deeper cut blades can be rated at similar wattage and similar RPM, yet the pedestal fan clears a room faster. You're not imagining it. If one fan in your house always felt stronger than another the same size, it's the blade geometry, not just the motor. This also explains why simply adding a second fan for true cross ventilation does more than adding a second fan pointed the same direction. Two fans blowing the same way just create a slightly bigger localized breeze. Two fans working in opposition, one pulling air in, one pushing air out, actually exchange the entire volume of air in a room, which is a completely different job. An HVAC technician would call this air changes per hour, and it's the exact same metric used to rate whole house ventilation systems. You're just doing it with two box fans and an open window instead of ductwork. Foster 630. The solution. Here's the exact $15 setup, step by step, the same way I'd walk a buddy through it in the shop. Step 1. Check your humidity before you do anything else. Look up your local relative humidity on your phone's weather app, or grab a cheap hygrometer for around $8 at any hardware store. If it's under 50%, this trick is going to work great, close to the full 10 to 15 degree range. Between 50 and 60%, it still helps, just less dramatically. Above roughly 65 to 70%, evaporative cooling loses most of its punch, and you're better off leaning almost entirely on the cross-draft airflow trick below without bothering much with the wet towel or ice pan step. Step 2, set up true cross ventilation, not just a fan sitting in the room, because that's the mistake almost everybody makes. Put one box fan in a window on the shadiest side of your house facing inward, actively pulling in cooler outside air. Then open a window on the opposite side of the room, ideally higher up, or at minimum on a different wall. And if you've got a second fan available, put it in that window facing outward, actively pulling hot air out of the space. Hot air naturally rises and pools near the ceiling, so an exhaust fan positioned high pulls out the air that's actually making the room feel stuffy and stagnant in the first place. This step alone, air actively moving in on one side and forced out the other, will noticeably change how a room feels in under 10 minutes, no ice required. Step 3. The $15 evaporative boost, the part that turns moving air into actually cooler air. Take a large, shallow container, a baking pan, a plastic storage tub, a cheap dish bin, whatever you've got lying around, and either fill it with ice water or freeze a couple of gallon jugs the night before and set them in it. Position it directly in front of your intake fan, close enough that the airflow physically passes right over the water's surface before it reaches the rest of the room. That airstream picks up cooled, evaporated moisture on its way through and delivers noticeably colder air than the fan alone ever could. A cheap, reusable gel cooler pack works fine too, if you'd rather skip the mess of an open water pan. Total cost for this step, roughly a $10 plastic tub plus ice you probably already have in the freezer, or a couple of $5 reusable ice packs from any gas station or grocery store. Add it up, and that's your $15, sometimes less. Step 4, optional but genuinely worth doing if your fan already feels weak. Clean the blades and check the motor before you assume the fan itself is the problem. A dust-caked fan blade loses a measurable amount of airflow just from added drag, sometimes a real 20 to 30% drop in output. Wipe the blades down with a damp cloth, and if the fan is more than a few years old, a small shot of light machine oil on the motor bushings. Check your specific manual, since many older box fans still have oil ports built in. Can restore smoother, quieter, more efficient spin. That's a mechanic's habit that carries over into everything. Before you go buy something new, clean and lubricate what you've already got. A few extra tricks worth knowing, especially if you're working with only one fan instead of two. Close the door of the room you're cooling if you can, and only crack the window enough to create a clear intake gap. A smaller, faster-moving stream of air across an ice pan cools better than a wide, slow one. If you don't have a second window on the opposite wall, propping the bedroom door open with a second fan positioned in the hallway, pulling air out toward another part of the house, can substitute for a true cross breeze in a pinch. And time your setup right. Run this whole arrangement starting an hour or two before bed, not after you're already sweating and miserable. Getting ahead of the heat works dramatically better than trying to chase it once a room's already saturated with warm air. In a dry or moderate climate, people running this exact setup report a genuine 10 to 15 degree difference in how the room actually feels without touching their electric bill in any meaningful way. Because two box fans sip a tiny fraction of the power a compressor-driven air conditioner pulls. You're not fighting physics with brute force and a breaker panel. You're just finally using the physics that was sitting there the whole time. A quick rundown of the mistakes I see people make when they try a version of this and decide it doesn't work, because getting these wrong is the difference between a night of real relief and a night of disappointment. Mistake 1, running only a single fan with no real exit point for the air. This is the single biggest reason people write this whole method off. One fan without cross ventilation is just circulating the same warm air, ice pan or not. You need air genuinely entering and genuinely leaving the room, not just moving around inside it. Mistake 2, placing the ice pan or wet towel too far from the fan. If the airflow isn't passing directly across the wet surface, you're not getting the evaporative effect. You're just cooling the 6 inches of air immediately around a bucket. Push it right up against the intake side of the fan. Mistake 3, ignoring humidity entirely and expecting swamp cooler level results in an already humid climate. This method still helps with plain airflow in a humid climate, but the ice and water trick specifically loses effectiveness as humidity climbs because the air is already close to holding as much moisture as it can. Set your expectations by your actual local humidity, not by a video you saw online. Mistake 4, waiting until the room is already hot to start. Airflow and evaporation work by preventing heat and moisture from building up in the first place. Starting the setup an hour or two before you actually need the room cool works far better than switching everything on after you're already sweating. 6:30, 8 some rebellion, close. Now look, I'm not telling you to throw out your air conditioner if you've got one that works. Use it. This isn't about being a hero or proving a point. This is about the nights your AC can't quite keep up, the apartment that never had central air installed in the first place, the garage or shop where dropping money on a unit was never in the budget, the electric bill that's already brutal enough in July without a compressor running nonstop until sunrise. The trap they set is a simple one. Convince you there's only ever one real solution to being hot, and make sure it's the expensive one with a financing plan attached. A $15 bucket of ice water and a couple of fans you already own in your closet isn't going to sell anybody a service contract. It's not going to get pushed under bright lights in a showroom. Before every basic airflow trick gets buried under a smart price tag and a subscription feature nobody asked for, learn how air actually moves and cools a room while you still can, because that knowledge doesn't expire and it never needs a warranty card. Try this tonight. Check your local humidity first. Set up real cross ventilation instead of just one fan pointed at your bed. Put a pan of ice water directly in front of your intake fan, and tell me in the comments exactly how many degrees it dropped in your room. I want real numbers, not vibes. Actual before and after readings if you've got a thermometer sitting around. If this just saved you from buying a window unit you didn't actually need, you already know what to do. Subscribe, because there's a lot more of this coming. The stuff mechanics, old-timers, and anybody who ever ran a shop without central air already knows, the stuff that never once made it onto a product label,